Flash Gordon. The
Yeah,
Flash Gordon soundtrack
Flash Gordon
by
was a big
Queen.
one.
I remember when we first got cable in like 1980 or 1981. 1981, I think. That movie, like in '82, was just on all the time, like 4 times a day. I just remember watching that movie constantly and thinking like, wow, this sound is so cool. What is, it's like a rock band, but then there are these synthesizers, in the rock band. So it's not like that's just what we started. That's what our musical knowledge started with. We lived in suburbs on the opposite sides of Pittsburgh, which is where they filmed Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. And those movies were always playing, like you said, on a Sunday afternoon or late at night on a Friday or Saturday night. So it's like Pittsburgh had a very thriving horror movie industry back in the 80s. There were lots of horror movies being directed. George Romero's from there. Tom Savini is from Pittsburgh and still lives in Pittsburgh.
I think the first one I saw was Night of the Living Dead on a Halloween night in Pittsburgh, like when I was really young.
Yeah,
that's the first one I remember.
6, maybe 6 or 7.
I remember it pretty clearly. It was like really late at night, watching that on television, being pretty scared. But
my parents will deny it, but they made me watch it. I was like 5 or 6, and I was afraid of scary movies. And they were watching Halloween. It was on, like channel 53 or 22 or something.
53.
And they were watching it, and I came into the room. and was like, oh, I'm gonna be in my room. And they're like, no, stay and watch it. It's not that scary. And that's what started it all. I just remember, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
For me, it's always, can I drive to this? And when I drive to it, does it make me go faster? That's about it. That's my test for anything. But I don't think we ever were like, had an idea in mind. It's just, I think everything we do, we want it to have some feeling of suspense and of a build and a release and something that makes you feel a little more excited when you're listening to it.
Yeah, well, the idea was to make a live band out of it, to take these ideas that were once totally married to the scenes and put them into a live band context. So, I don't know, for me, I never thought about what scene this would work for. I thought about, how cool this is gonna sound at, some DIY show space. We bring these synthesizers in and kids are expecting, some punk band, since I was 5 or 6, I've, been in love with the Halloween soundtracks. So it isn't like one day I realized I'm taking inspiration and borrowing ideas from these soundtracks. I just knew it from the start. But I think until you're actually sitting down with just synthesizers and using the same synthesizers that they used, that's when it becomes, full concept. Until then, you can take, ideas, the tonalities that Carpenter used, or things like that, and you can incorporate it and use it in different ways that aren't quite as obvious to anybody else, but to you they may be.
The first thing we ever did was for a friend of ours.
Oh, yeah.
Student film. That was a lot of fun. I just remember sitting around in front of a television watching it with, our synths on the floor, just making noises and scoring it that way. And then the third one was Murder Set Pieces, which was a larger production. They flew us to Las Vegas. We had 4 or 5 days in the studio on lockdown, and it was fun. We created everything in those 4 or 5 days. It was fun.
But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we got to spend a week in Vegas, so.
Charlotte, are you here?
Like Crawl?
Yeah, Crawl.
That's pretty bad. But
Beastmaster.
Beastmaster too.
I
Yeah,
love
Beastmaster's another one.
Clash of the Titans.
Oh yeah, really solid.
It looks really weird and terrible, but it's still really awesome.
Yeah, it's more about a look and a feeling
Yeah.
instead of the actual filmmaking, which usually isn't that good.
Well, and in that case, the Harryhausen, animations, they have their own. It's like a synthesizer. It doesn't look like a real creature. I don't know if it's really totally meant to. It looks like it's his style, the Harryhausen. It's its own thing. So it's at being what it is. It's perfect and amazing.